All right, so here's what we're going to do. This is going to be a little bit of an introduction. I'm going to go through the Stephen Avery case and the Brendan Dassey case, kind of episode by episode of what you would have seen on Making a Murderer, but just taking a few of the talking points and then kind of discussing them. And then what I want you guys to do is leave some comments below on what you think of those particular talking points, if there should be more added, and then in the next video, if there's more information like that, I will include it in the video. And how we're going to do it, we're kind of going to, and for the time frame purpose, we're going to break it down episode by episode of the Netflix documentary Making a Murderer. If you haven't seen it, go watch that before you watch this video. It's incredible. It's one of the strangest cases you will ever see. It's bonkers crazy. So I'm going to talk about things that were only mentioned in that particular episode. I'm not going to jump ahead to things that we already know happened. I'm going to do it episode by episode, but once I get to episode 2, I can go back and see what happened in episode 1 as well. So just no jumping forward. We can jump back. So Making a Murderer, episode 1, opens up with Stephen Avery arriving home after 18 years of being in prison for a crime he did not commit. On July 29th, 1985, Penny Bernstein was jogging on a beach when a man attacked her, dragged her into the woods, and sexually assaulted her. Because of past crimes such as robbery and animal cruelty, the Manitowoc County already did not like Stephen Avery or the Avery family in general. They did not fit in with the rest of the county. It was a farming county, and the Avery had their salvage yard where they scrapped automobiles and things of that nature. With that said, I bet you if you needed a car part or a part of a car, that was the first place you went in that area to get it. So for them, they were offering a service that I guess no one else in the county or in the area was offering. So that's definitely a viable business. I mean, look how many cars and such were on the lot when this series started. Thousands of them. It was just crazy. So, however, because of the crimes of robbery and animal cruelty, just to name a couple, the town did not like Stephen Avery, and I completely get that. I'm a big animal lover. If he was in prison right now for what he did to that cat, case closed, let him sit there forever. But he's not. He was in there for something he did not do. In January of 1985, Sandra Morris, Stephen's cousin, was ran off the road by Stephen Avery. He grabbed a gun, which Stephen claims was not loaded, pointed it at her because Sandra was making claims of him being naked and having sex with his wife in his front yard and exposing himself indecently to Sandra previously. Sandra was married to a deputy in the town. So Sandra already did not like Stephen Avery for those things. She claims she did not say the stuff about Avery being naked in his front yard, but she did keep to the claims, and Stephen admitted that he did run her off the road. He did have the gun, but Avery claims the gun was not loaded. So, family dispute, they don't get along. Should he have run her off the road? Should he have pulled the gun on her? Absolutely not. But that will come into play later, and that's why Sandra, I'm sure among other reasons, did not like Stephen. Already did not like Stephen. Stephen Avery, because of that incident, is charged with endangering safety regardless of life and felony possession of a firearm. His former lawyer, Reese Evans, believes that this was a way to send a message to the entire family by being able to charge Stephen Avery with a violent crime. I mean, what Reese had to say definitely makes sense to me. If the town already didn't like Stephen Avery or the Avery family, this was a way that they could get him and put him behind bars and get him out of the community if that's what they wanted to do. Let's go back to the Penny Bernstein attack. Deputy Judy Dvorak, a friend of Sandra Morris. Now remember, Sandra Morris is Stephen's cousin that accused him and was the person that he did indeed run off the road. So that deputy and Sandra are friends. Deputy Judy Dvorak was the one that was sent to the hospital to get a description of the attacker. And when she was given the description from Penny, she immediately stated, "Oh, that sounds like Stephen Avery." Judy also lived across the road from Stephen Avery, and she didn't like him either. Now, I'm not saying that Stephen Avery was a great human being, a great person. Clearly had his issues. But does that mean he deserves to sit in prison for 2 crimes he didn't commit? If he's that bad of a person, get him on something that he actually did. It does not seem like it would be very hard, but just framing somebody for things they didn't do is not the way to go about it, in my opinion. Judy Dvorak is accused of making Penny Bernstein sign the incident report, even though Penny stated she could not read it due to having blurred vision due to the recent attack on her. But she was forced, or it was suggested that she sign it anyway, which she did, because she probably obviously trusted the sheriff's department and the police department. She probably didn't know anything that was going on. She was just part of the county's plan to get rid of Stephen Avery. Chief Deputy Jean Couche. I am terrible with last names, so I apologize. It's just something I'm terrible at pronouncing. Chief Deputy Jean made a composite drawing of Stephen Avery using a picture he got from the old criminal records department of when Stephen Avery had been arrested and photographed before. Instead of getting a description of the attacker from Penny Bernstein to draw the composite, he used the picture that they already had on file. He then showed the drawing, the composite drawing, to Penny, and then made a photo lineup using the same picture he used to draw the composite with. So, of course, Penny picked out Stephen Avery's picture from that lot. That's the only picture she had seen. Then, because of that, she also picked Stephen out of an in-person lineup. Now, this gets kind of weird. The chief deputy then framed his composite drawing, put it in his office. No, I'm not making that up. He says it was because it was his first one, and it was his first one used in a court case to find someone guilty. But what a strange thing to do. And of course Penny is going to pick out Stephen when that's the only picture she's seen, when that's the only person of a drawing she's seen. She's not going to recognize anybody else. You're immediately going to go pick out that person. But if you read the report, Stephen did not fit any of Penny's original description. The eye color, the color of the underwear. Now, Stephen didn't own any underwear. He didn't wear underwear, so he wouldn't have been wearing underwear at the time of the attack, and she also got the eye color wrong. Now, that's not saying that because of the attack that Penny doesn't remember everything correctly. She went through a horrific event. So if she was getting some of the details wrong, completely 100% understandable. The chief deputy says that he did not see the picture of Stephen Avery while he was drawing that composite. But if you watch the Making a Murderer documentary, They overlay the pictures. They put the pictures up on top of each other, and they line up identically. It's almost like he had some tracing paper and traced the picture of Stephen Avery that was already there, because it matches up perfect. Absolutely perfect. There is no way he did not see that picture ahead of time, in my opinion, or was using it right there and drawing it out. When Stephen Avery was arrested, his lawyer at the time, Reese Evans, was not told he was in jail, and Stephen was denied access to his lawyer and a phone call, which is, of course, is illegal. You always get your lawyer and you always get a phone call. No matter what you did, no matter how horrendous the crime is, those are the two things you get no matter what. You get a lawyer and you get a phone call. And he was also denied bail due to his past record, which makes sense. He's got a record of robbery. He's got a record of indecent exposure. He's got a record of animal cruelty. So keeping him behind bars, if he was indeed guilty, makes sense. When the story broke, a local reporter in the area, this guy was interviewed for Making a Murderer, Mike Kinzit, said he was not surprised that Avery was the one they arrested for that crime because of his past. Again, that makes sense. If all you know is Avery's past, you have no reason not to believe that he committed the attack on Penny Bernstein. One of Stephen Avery's lawyers that he would get in the future, his post-conviction lawyer, says there was zero evidence that linked Stephen Avery to that crime, the attack on Penny Bernstein. 3 people in the district attorney office told their boss, District Attorney Dennis Vogel, they have the wrong guy. You have the wrong guy. You need to look at somebody named Gregory Allen, who had a long history of sexual crimes. The police were already... This is where it gets a little bit crazy. Well, the whole thing's crazy, but I'm probably going to say a lot because the whole thing's insane. The police were already watching Gregory Allen for the past 13 straight days, checking in on him sometimes up to 14 times a day. But at the time of the attack, the police were not watching him because they were called away to investigate something else, another situation. So Gregory Allen has a long history of sexual crimes. They're already watching him. And when the crime happens, the cops happen to not be watching him. Plus, you have 3 people that work in the DA office telling their boss, you need to look at this guy. But they're like, nope, don't need to look at him. We have our guy. Man, just bonkers. The majority of people think the sheriff department in Manitowoc County wanted Avery for this crime no matter what because of the past incident with Sandra Morris, the deputy's wife. So because of this, Gregory Allen was not looked at. He wasn't brought in. He was left on the street to go commit at least 2 more sexual crimes in the next 10 years, was found guilty, and in 1995 was sentenced to 60 years in prison. So at least that we know of, he did 2 more crimes, probably more. Those women would not have had to gone through that if they just listened to everybody that was telling them to look at Gregory Allen. The sheriff of the town said he did not know who Allen was, which turned out to be false because he was booked and photographed in that jail in 1984. I mean, if you're lying about things, make sure, they can't be proven against you fairly easily. Come on. You're the sheriff of the town. You know people have access to those records. You know they can just go back, oh, yeah, he was here in 1984. Just not the smartest bunch of apples. I don't know what that means, but it's so crazy, the lies that they told to frame Stephen Avery in this case that could easily be proven. I don't understand it. Detective Thomas Bergner told the town sheriff Tom about Gregory Allen, but was told not to bother with him. They already have the man they want, Stephen Avery. Stephen Avery has upwards of 22 witnesses that can give his whereabouts during the entire day that Penny was attacked, including his mother, his wife, his brother, and his sister, among other people. His whereabouts are clocked perfectly by these people during the time of the attack. Again, is Stephen a great human, a great person? No, but he was not guilty of this crime and did not deserve to serve 18 years in prison for doing it. So at the age of 23, Stephen Avery is found guilty of sexual assault, attempted murder, and false imprisonment, and he's sentenced to 32 years in prison. Because Stephen Avery would not admit his guilt in this case, because he didn't do it. He wouldn't even just say he did it so he could get early parole. That's how much he did not want people to think he did this. So he was not eligible for parole ever because he would not admit guilt in this case. That most people would be like, yeah, whatever, I did it, send me home. But he was willing to serve out all 32 years because he didn't do it. That's some kind of conviction. That's some kind of like sticking to your morals. He may have did that robbery, held a gun at his cousin, lit that cat on fire. But again, you don't deserve to be in prison for sexual assault if you didn't do it. It's honestly, it's too bad that he wasn't serving that time for murdering that cat. I'm a huge animal person, but I can't see somebody serving their entire life behind prison for something they didn't do. That it's so crazy to me. From 1986 to 1994, Avery appealed his conviction to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. All his attempts were denied. In order to get a new trial, his post-conviction lawyers, Stephen Glenn and Robert Hennick, had to come up with new evidence. They were told the only way Stephen Avery is going to get a new trial is if you can prove new evidence. Something new has to be brought to the court. Now, when Stephen Avery was convicted in 1985, there was no such thing as DNA testing. But now, in 1995, and really it was the O.J. Simpson trial that brought DNA testing to the forefront, to the mainstream media. Now in 1995, they had that option available. They retested some of the DNA they found under Penny's fingernails, and it showed someone else's DNA. Someone that was not Avery or Penny was found. So that mixed with the fact that she got the eye color wrong and the underwear color didn't match. Remember, Stephen Avery doesn't wear underwear. That alone should have been enough to get a new trial. But since they couldn't prove whose DNA it was, the court ruled it out. Like, they couldn't prove that it wasn't her husband's, or they couldn't prove that it was one of the one of the EMTs that helped her out. Now, Penny never said she scratched any of them, but you never know. So because they couldn't prove whose it was, they ruled that evidence out. Stephen Avery still can't get a new trial. In 2001, the Wisconsin Innocent Project takes on Stephen Avery's case. They did more testing this time with pubic hair they found at the scene. They had 13 hairs. 11 of the hairs had no root, so they couldn't be tested. One belonged to a female, probably Penny's. So that left one hair. And they tested that one hair, and it did not match Stephen Avery. Did not match Stephen Avery. You know who it did match? They ran the hair through a data bank, and the hair belonged to, yep, you guessed it, Gregory Allen. The same Gregory Allen they were told not to worry about because they already had their guy, Stephen Avery, letting Gregory Allen go on to continue to commit at least 2 more crimes, and is now serving I don't even know if he's still alive. Now serving 60 years for what he did to at least 2 other people when that did not have to happen to those people. September 11th, 2003, Stephen Avery was freed and released from prison. Michael Grease, the new assistant district attorney, told Dennis Vogel that Avery was freed and innocent. And all Vogel had to say was he wanted to know if there was information in his files, about Gregory Allen. And you know what? There was. From September 12th, 1983, in the Avery file was a file on Gregory Allen for lewd and insidious behavior on the same beach that Penny Bernstein was attacked on a couple years later. It gets better. The prosecutor on that case was Dennis Vogel. So he absolutely already knew the history of Gregory Allen. But yet they just wanted Stephen Avery for this, so they got Stephen Avery for this, and they let other women get assaulted by Gregory Allen when it didn't have to happen. What horrendous human beings. Because of all that, because of them finding Stephen Avery was actually innocent, he didn't do it, the Attorney General orders the Division of Criminal Investigation to examine the court's handling of the case. After a 3-month investigation, they submit their findings. What do they find? Yeah, of course. What do you expect? They find nothing. No wrongdoing. The report they submitted clears investigators. Stephen Avery spent 18 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit, and they can't find any wrongdoing. It's bonkers. Straight up bonkers. Stephen Avery then brings a $36 million lawsuit against the Manitowoc County. And here's where things go off the rail. Everybody felt that they were not done with Stephen Avery. He got out on that. They're going to get him on something else. And they do. Episode 1 ends with Stephen Avery getting accused and charged with murder. Well, that's episode 1. That's how they framed Stephen Avery for the attack on Penny Bernstein. Coming up in episode 2, did they do it again? Because they're not done with Stephen Avery because he was able to prove his innocence and get freed? Like I said, if you haven't watched Making a Murderer, go watch Making a Murderer. It's bonkers. Then come back and watch this, and let's talk about it. Leave some comments below. Tell me what you think of each point by point. I really appreciate you guys checking this out, and I'll see you again soon.